messing up a sex talk. As a sex educator, I have spent years gathering information and developing communication strategies to, have conversations about sexuality with kids and with teens. So you would think that when it comes to talking to my own child, that things would generally go pretty smoothly. But that is not the case. The truth is that as a parent, I screw up. I screw up fairly frequently, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in really spectacular ways, and that includes messing up a sex talk or 2 or 10. The truth is, it's a lot easier for me to be, objective and calm and thoughtful and thorough when I'm working with other families because I don't have the same emotional investment that I do with my own family. Another reason that it's easier is because when I'm working, I have a lot of control over, what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it and when I'm going to say it, but my own child's needs or challenges or questions around sexuality can crop up like anytime, anywhere, and I'm not necessarily always prepared or like in that sex educator headspace, and so yeah, mistakes happen. Sex stuff, talking to our kids about sex can feel really fraught for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, if you have grown up in the same, North American society that I have, then, we've all been inundated with messages about how sex can be, risky or dangerous or uncontrollable, especially when it comes to kids and teens. And then we also have a lot of messaging in our culture about how important it is to do parenting right. And so when you take those two things together, it makes sense that, a lot of us have some anxiety around talking to our kids about sexuality because it can sometimes feel like, if we do not get these conversations exactly right and say things in exactly the right way, then we run the risk of, causing irrevocable harm to our children and, ruining their lives. And, that is a lot to have on your mind when you're having these conversations. When we're trying to teach our kids about sexuality, there are a few things that we really want to avoid. Under no circumstances should you ever touch a child or a teen in a sexual way or expose yourself to a child or a teen in a sexual way. It's abusive. Never, ever do that. You don't ever want to sexualize your child or talk to them like they're an object of your sexual attraction. Again, it's creepy. It's gross. Do not do that. Beyond that, if you are coming into these conversations with the intention of helping them understand their bodies, relationships, aspects of their identity, yeah, there's a chance you're going to make a mistake. You will probably make some mistakes, but those mistakes almost certainly will not be catastrophic. Let's go through some common mistakes that can happen when we are having conversations with our kids about sexuality and what we can do about it. So a really common situation is when our kids ask us a question or make a comment about sexuality that we weren't prepared for. And a lot of us in that situation will do one of two things. We will either freeze and just be like, sort of babble, or we'll freak out a little bit around our kids and be like, oh my God, like who told you that? Where did you hear that? Blah! So what to do if that happens? First, be honest. I'm sorry, when you asked me what a blowjob was, I wasn't really expecting the question and I didn't really know how to answer you. Next, reassure them. It's perfectly normal for you to be curious about words like that and what they mean. Then you get to decide if you want to answer the question. A blowjob is when one person puts another person's penis in their mouth. If you'd rather answer the question later, I don't think that now is the right time for us to talk about this, but we are definitely going to come back to it when you're a little bit older and when you can understand it a little bit better. Or you can use my favorite tactic, which is asking them a question to try and feel out what they already know. What do you think blowjob means? Another mistake that sometimes happens is our kids ask us a question about sex. We give them an answer, but the answer is way too detailed. I have done this on more than one occasion. I remember once my kid asked me about periods. They were like 4, and I went into this like overblown, description of like endometrial layers and blah, blah, blah. And it was too much. The good news about this one is it's usually really easy to fix because you don't really have to do anything. When kids get more information than they're able to handle, they just don't take it in. They stop listening to you. They space out. And this is why it's really great if you are having ongoing conversations about sexuality, because you will get to take another crack at it down the line and you can just simplify. Then there's the opposite mistake, when we've had a conversation with our kids about some aspect of sexuality and we realize, I probably didn't give them enough information. So we had that whole conversation about condoms last month, and I didn't think to ask you at the time, do you know how to put on a condom? So how we fix that one is that as soon as we realize that we left something out, we give them the information. And finally, there are the situations where we have told our children something about sexuality that isn't true. Whether misinformation has happened by accident or it was a deliberate choice, it's actually really important when we're talking to our kids about sexuality that we are as honest and factual as we can be. This is another situation where I think it's great to lead off with an apology. I'm sorry, I told you that I hadn't had sex before I got married, and that is not true. I'm sorry, I told you that a trans person is someone who takes hormones and has surgery to change their gender, and that isn't accurate. And then after you've made the apology, tell them the truth. I didn't want you to know that I had had other sexual partners before I got married, because I think sex with another person is a big deal, and I guess I just didn't want you to, dive into sex too early or without thinking about it. I was watching a program recently and I learned that a lot of trans people don't take steps to change their bodies, but they still identify with a gender that's different than the one that they were assigned at birth. And finally, reassure them that moving forward, you are going to do your best to be honest with them and to provide them with information that's accurate, and that if you make a mistake, you will correct it as soon as possible. As I said, we all make mistakes parenting, and if teaching our kids about sexuality is part of that parenting, then we're gonna make mistakes there too. But the good news is that if you're trying, in many ways, that is more important than whether you get any particular sex talk, right or wrong. By being willing to share information with your kids, by being willing to have open conversations, and by being willing to go back and correct yourself when things don't go perfectly, you are letting your kid know that, sexuality is something that you're willing to talk about. You're letting them know that it's something that they can talk to you about, and you're letting them know that the lines of communication are always open. And at the end of the day, that is the most important thing that you can do for your kids. So in the comments below, let me know if there's a particular aspect of sexuality that, you are nervous about, that you're worried you don't know how to talk to your kids about, or maybe, you've had a conversation and it kind of went off the rails a little bit. Anyway, that is all for now. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye.